Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lovefraud Live. You know your romantic partner is not faithful, and you know this person isn't worth your time or energy. Yet, when the sociopath starts the silent treatment, you're devastated. Why? I'm Donna Andersen, author of Lovefraud.com, and tonight I'll explain why you are distraught about the sociopath's silent treatment. At the end of my presentation, I'll answer your questions. To join the chat or ask a question, please subscribe to this channel. Suppose you've discovered that your romantic partner is lying and cheating on you. When you confront him or her, this person turns on you and refuses to talk to you. You're the one who's been wronged. So why are you upset that the sociopath is giving you the silent treatment? A Lovefraud reader, whom we'll call Lucy, asked exactly this question. In the email that she sent me, she said she'd ridden the merry-go-round for 10 years with a guy who cheated and did not tell the truth. She said they'd break up, usually with her pushing him away and then him acting like the victim. But then they could never stay away from each other. He begged, she rejected, he retreated, and then she felt overwrought. It was a horrible experience, and Lucy was heartbroken every single time. She couldn't understand this cycle. What was going on? Well, there is a clear-cut explanation for Lucy's perplexing reaction to the sociopath's silent treatment. Romantic relationships are supposed to be about love, trust, loyalty, and mutual support. Obviously, this is not what Lucy was experiencing with her partner. The guy lied, cheated, and then when questioned, he went silent. If she were being rational, Lucy would kick him to the curb and be glad that he was leaving her alone. But that's not what happened. Instead, she was heartbroken. Why? Well, because Lucy was caught in a betrayal bond. The Betrayal Bond is the title of a book written by Patrick J. Carnes, Ph.D. If you are stuck in an exploitative or abusive relationship, I recommend that you read it. Carnes explains that a betrayal bond is a highly addictive attachment to people who have hurt you. He wrote that exploitative relationships create betrayal bonds. They occur when a victim bonds with someone who is destructive to him or her. Carnes lists 14 warning signs of a betrayal bond. Here are 4 that apply to Lucy's situation. Number 1, when there is a constant pattern of non-performance, yet you continue to believe false promises. 2, when you feel stuck because you know the other person is doing something destructive to you, but you believe you can't do anything about it. Number 3, when you move closer to someone you know is destructive to you with the desire of converting them to a non-abuser. And 4, when the history of your relationship is about contracts or promises that have been broken and that you are asked to overlook. A betrayal bond is essentially a trauma bond. Carnes uses the word betrayal to drive home the point that the problem has been caused by someone's intentional actions against you. What happened was not an accident. The perpetrator exploited you, and as a result, you were traumatized. Trauma has deep and lasting effects, emotional, psychological, and physical. After a major frightening event or a continuing pattern of frightening events, many people end up with post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. PTSD is not just a psychological phenomenon. With PTSD, the body is stuck in fight or flight mode, which means it's pumping stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol. This causes physiological changes in the body, brain, and nervous system. As a result, you can experience a myriad of symptoms, from high blood pressure to depression to anxiety to loss of relationships to hopelessness. This is no way to live. Therefore, it's critical to find a way to break the betrayal bond. So, how do you do this? The first step is understanding and admitting that you're dealing with a betrayal bond. Then, to free yourself so that you can enjoy the life that you truly want and deserve, you need to commit to your own recovery. Breaking off contact with the perpetrator is crucial, but as Lucy found, sometimes it's not so easy. Every time Lucy tried it, she felt overwrought. She couldn't stay away from her lying, cheating partner. Why? Because betrayal bonds are addictive. Breaking a betrayal bond is the same as breaking an addiction. If you've ever successfully quit smoking, drinking, overeating, or any other destructive behavior, apply what you learned in that effort to overcome the sociopath's silent treatment and stay away. People in 12-step programs are advised to take it one day at a time, and that advice also applies to escaping a sociopath. Because of the trauma bond, it may feel impossible to put the person out of your life forever. So, you put him or her out for today, and then for tomorrow, and then the next day. The longer you stay away, the more your disordered partner's grip on you weakens. Eventually, you realize that the sociopath's silent treatment is exactly what you want. Even better, you decide that you will maintain your no-contact program and have nothing to say to your ex. That's the presentation for tonight. So next I'll answer your questions. If you want in-depth advice about your own situation, I do offer personal consultations and a deep emotional release service. There's a link in the description below this video. If you have a question, please be sure to subscribe so that you can participate in the chat and ask your question. When you subscribe, you'll also be automatically notified about all my new videos. Plus, by subscribing, you'll boost the distribution of Lovefraud Live, so you'll help to spread the word about all these dangerous sociopaths who live among us. Let me elaborate a little bit on the Betrayal Bond book. It's I do strongly recommend that if you find yourself in an abusive relationship that you just can't seem to break free of, this book will probably help you, because not only does it explain what a betrayal bond is, but it has a lot of worksheets and quizzes and different forms to help you to really analyze what has happened in your own situation, so that you can start to see what you're dealing with. Because it can be really hard to spot what's going on, especially because we just don't have any information about what a betrayal bond is. I mean, nobody tells us about this stuff. We just know that we feel terrible, that we know this person is bad for us, and we can't break away. So this book will help you to understand what's going on, and goes into a lot of depth, which I certainly appreciate. In fact, he actually makes the point, Dr. Carnes makes the point in the book, that the whole idea is to find meaning in your experience. And if you don't deal with the betrayal bond, your chances of actual recovery are pretty low. Well, he wouldn't say pretty low, but he would say that it's crucial. It is absolutely crucial to deal with this betrayal bond, because sometimes, you can go to therapy and you can work on setting boundaries and you can work on being assertive and all this other stuff. But that deep emotional bond needs to be broken. It needs to be addressed. So it's very important to do that. Okay, so Mom with Phone says, the longer I was no contact, the more clarity I experienced. And yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. Which is another reason why it's so important to go no contact, because it's like the sociopaths just have this grip on your mind and your heart. And the longer you can stay away from them, the more the grip loosens, and the more they don't have this, emotional control that you feel. So that's why it's so important to do the no contact program, because just as when you're dealing with an addiction, I mean, usually the best way to get off of an addiction is to go cold turkey and break it. And then you need to stay on the wagon, because what happens is if you fall off the wagon and, just say, oh, I can have one drink or I can have one cigarette or something like that. Well, all those pleasure receptors that in your brain that are associated with the addictive behavior, they all get lit up. And all of a sudden you find that you can't control it. You can't stop at one. You can't stop it. Just have a little, or just do it for today or something like that. And the same thing happens when you get off the no contact program and contact or have some kind of interaction with the sociopath. I mean, all those same triggers and bonds that you feel, they all snap right back into place, and as if, that you hadn't been working on it at all. And, people are pretty surprised by this. I've had quite a few folks say to me that, they were away from this person for maybe 6 months or maybe even a year or something like that. And, they start thinking, well, maybe we can be just friends. We'll just be friends. And for some reason, sociopaths seem to be psychic about that. I mean, they seem to understand or just get this vibe of, when their last target or whichever target you are, when this person might be amenable to talking to me. And then they call up or they reach out to you or something like that. And you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm healthy. I've done well. I'm feeling good. I can be friends. Never works. I have never, ever had anybody say that they were able to successfully protect themselves if they got back in contact with the sociopath. I mean, sooner or later, the sociopath gets back to all the old tricks, and you kind of feel like you're stuck in this situation. So that's why it's so important to, when you make the decision to go no contact, I mean, you need to be ready to follow through. I mean, so sometimes I kind of suggest that, perhaps you don't go no contact right away if you feel like you're going to slip back into it. You have to be ready to do it, because once you do it, you want it to be period, the end. You never talk to this person ever again. You never see this person. You don't have any exchange or anything like that. Because if you go down the road a little bit and you falter, you start back at square one, and it could be more difficult than ever. Sandra Plord says, isn't his book controversial? Well, I've never heard that. I don't know what the controversy might be. I think it's excellent information, and I've found it to be very helpful. So that's kind of news to me. I don't know anything about that. All right, so Mom with Phone says, now that my sociopathic mother is dead and she still holds real estate in my mind psyche. Yeah. That's where the emotional release comes in. I mean, that's where it's possible. It's possible for somebody who's gone to still kind of have a grip on you. And the way you deal with that is getting at that energetic bond, because there can be this kind of emotional, energetic, psychological bond that you feel even when the person is gone, no longer on the planet. So that's internal work. I mean, it can certainly be done, but it's something that you do yourself. And the idea is to, bring those emotions to the surface. Especially if this was your mother, then, there could be things obviously going way back into your childhood, things that you've experienced, painful things, wounds and bad memories that are like buried really deep within you. And it's worth it to excavate them and to bring them to the surface, because as you bring them to the surface and allow yourself to feel the emotions that are attached to what has happened and to get at the energy of it, once you do that, you release it and you let it go, and then it's gone. And this is actually what I do with my deep emotional release service. I help people to do this, but it's absolutely worth it. And it can be done. And, she's not here anymore, for crying out loud. I mean, it's time to get her out of your mind, or any sociopath that still seems to be around when they're not. So that is emotional work and energetic work that you can do yourself. And I certainly recommend that anybody who's in that situation to take that on. Okay, so Poop Dog Returns, that's a cute name you have there. Sociopaths like to target lonely people. They have endless opportunities to torment and take advantage. Sociopaths function by targeting people's vulnerabilities. And anybody who is lonely, that's a massive vulnerability. And that's actually one of the problems with dating sites. If anybody who's on a dating app or anything, because sociopaths target lonely people. And if you put a profile up on a dating site, you're advertising the fact that you're lonely. So you're like setting yourself up to be targeted by a predator. So, that's why it's a big risk. Yes, plenty of people have been successful with dating sites, have found people, have married. I know several myself. But you do need to be careful. You do need to understand that when you're doing that, you're revealing your vulnerabilities, and that's what they do. And the thing is, everybody has vulnerabilities. We all have something that makes us vulnerable. If we want something, whatever we want is a vulnerability. So sociopaths are just very, very skilled at figuring out what people's vulnerabilities are and then taking advantage of them. So that's exactly what they do. Okay, so Sandra says, why does the betrayal bond happen only in some personality disordered relationships? All my relationships where with bad boys, so to speak, but only 3 had that bond effect. The way these psychological bonds are established is because of 2 things happen. First, there is a power differential. And what that means in a relationship is that one person is more interested in holding on to the relationship than the other person is. There's actually, I did a blog article about this not too long ago. But the person who is least interested in the relationship, it has the most power, because the person with the least interest can take it or leave it. They can walk away. And so because of that, they have the most power in the relationship. So that's the first factor. The second factor is intermittent good and bad treatment. And if you remember your Psych 101, essentially intermittent conditioning is, sometimes a behavior gets rewarded and sometimes it doesn't. And what happens is, if you're in a situation like this where you do something one day and the person thinks you're wonderful, and you do the same thing the next day and you get yelled at, you become, you don't know what's going to happen. And so this is called intermittent reinforcement. And so then what happens is that you keep trying to do something, hoping that you're going to get the positive reward. So when you have this combination of a differential in power, a power imbalance in the relationship, plus good and bad reinforcement, intermittent reinforcement, that combination combined is what creates the trauma bond. So I guess in your situation, Sandra, you had some situations where that dynamic existed and then some where it didn't. And that could be exactly why some of the relationships were traumatic and others weren't. Okay. Well, that appears to be all the questions that we have for today. So thank you, everybody, and I'm glad you're here, and we'll be here next week again for the next episode of Lovefraud Live. Good night.